Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL. NFL draft prospects and rookies. Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man Jay Rich. Count that money, man. Now wipe the crust out of your eyes. Get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense, and you sound silly
Get it,
as
baby.
hell. GMGP. It is Monday, August 5th, 2024. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G, and y'all know I appreciate each and every person, each and every ear, eye, everything in the building today. Jimbo, I see y'all talking trash at the beginning of the show. It ain't CP time, man. We were just making sure we had everything together. What's popping with you, Jimbo, this morning? What's going on? Tyler Claire, Ron the Commander. I got Bailey Peterson in the house, father of 5 TV. Good morning, Gretchen. How are you doing? My girl Gretchen in the building. So, Jay, what is this color on my... What is this shit Ecam has done? This big yellow comment. Disgusting. What's happening with you, Gretchen? You didn't do that. That was all me. Seth Dub, what's happening with you, Dynasty Alex? Drew, what's up, baby? Drew Sorensen Music, GMGP to you, my guy, Drew. Jordan Baker in the building. Garrison, Matt Jones, Rico Stone. We got a damn show for y'all today. Week like 2.5 of training camp. We actually have preseason, Jay, like preseason this week opposed to the thing that we had last week when Khalil Herbert was playing deep into the second quarter. I can't explain it. Roschon Johnson, DeAndre Swift wheels up in Chicago, but we got to talk about it. And if you missed the show last night, Scott Connor and I did a live draft, FFPC, best ball draft with our patrons, patreon.com/all gas, a nice little break and reprieve from the underdog drafts that are going on right now, college, BBM, all that dope stuff. So make sure you check out that show. Scott also released part 2 of Destination Dynasty with the Dynasty Theory crew, Mitch Sorensen and John Bauer. So check that out across the podcast feed. And if you ain't subbed to the pod, do that. We got dope shows. Jeff Mueller, our injury analyst, is back, baby. He's going to start putting out those injury pods. So make sure you are subscribed. Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitch, wherever you listen to pods. DD Radio podcast feed. Get your ass in the building. No, there's no background change. I just had to put, there's some stuff happening in the garage. I had to move the piton inside. No background change. But the man whose background has changed, Jay Rich, you looking good this morning. How you doing, baby?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, I'm on halt watch in the market to see if we get those halts. Maybe we get a double halt today. You know, I know you're into it, so I just figured I'd bring it up. But I was checking this morning, looking at the early futures. It's like 10 points or whatever, 10% down. It's insane.
Yeah, it's
what could be happening.
I've got
It's
Coinbase
rough
up
out
right
here
now because I'm probably gonna be loading up on some more Bitcoin here in a minute. That thing took an absolute dump, but you're looking good, man. I see you with the MJ posters in the background, little light back there. Look at you, baby.
Yeah, you know, get hooked up, do good things, I guess.
Well, Jay, I was going to put you on the spot and do some straight facts this morning and getting into the news, but there's not a ton of news items, but the news items that we do have, they're worthy of quite the bit of discussion, Jay. So I think some of the biggest news coming out of this weekend outside of a lackluster season finale of House of the Dragon. I mean, I don't know if you're in the Game of Thrones universe, Jay.
I haven't watched it yet.
It's
so
good
I haven't gone to House of Dragons.
It's good storytelling, not a lot of action last night, but I'm also reading the books, neither here nor there. But the biggest piece of news that I think sort of dropped over the past weekend, USA, baby. Team USA getting it done, Jay Rich. I'm talking about that man that talked all the shit in the world, Noah Lyles, and went out there, took home gold for Team USA in the 100-meter dash. Going to try to get it done in a 200-meter dash. Jay, we had a conversation about, Olympic athletes and how, where they rank on the Mount Rushmore of sports figures. And the two athletes that we talked about in particular, and we got to give these two women credit and shout out, man. Katie Ledecky, what she's been able to do throughout the Olympic Games. I mean, taking gold place in all of the swimming events that she has, one of the greatest swimmers, the greatest female swimmer that we've ever seen. And some say right up there with Michael Phelps is the greatest Olympic swimmers to ever grace the water. And then we also had Simone Biles, Jay, who also dominated once again, I believe 6 individual gold medals, the best gymnast of all time. Just pure domination by these two women athletes, competitors across their sports. And the question that I asked you, Jay, that I want to pose to the chat, how high do they rank, Jay Rich? How high do they rank in the pantheon of sports Mount Rushmore performers? Like, where are they, man?
It's one of the most difficult conversations to have, right? Because we're so used to ranking athletes in seasonal cycles, right? Annual cycles. Every year they have a chance to win the championship. You know, you have your gold medals here. You have your Copa Americas here. You got your World Cups over there. But for the most part, we talk about athletes, especially in North America, as that yearly cycle and compare them in that way. When you talk about Olympians and grouping them all in, it becomes so much more difficult because these are people who train for 4 years for one moment, or in the case of Biles and Ledecky, multiple moments, right? But Lyles is literally training for basically one event, but he's also good enough in the 100 that he can compete for that and win. And so it's so difficult to compare when you're talking about the longevity of the athlete being at that peak performance for, 4, 8, 12 years. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to compare. They're the best at what they do, but to compare them to even a LeBron James who, has been to, 11 straight finals. It's like, we know how impressive that is, but it's hard to compare that to how impressive it is to going to 3 Olympics and winning 3 gold medals.
Listen, I'll say this. Lyles' win was dope. Glad he got it done, but he's not even in the conversation because what Usain Bolt, when we did this conversation, Phelps and Bolt were both in my Mount Rushmore. But the more I think about this, I don't even think you can. I don't think they're in the same category as team competitors, Jay. I don't know if we were talking about what this would be like for Ledecky, for Simone Biles. This would be like the equivalent of Tiger going out there and winning every major, like multiple years, like everyone. He just goes out there and he beats everybody down, every single major that's out there, which he's going to win a lot of them, but you're not winning every major in golf. You're just not doing that.
Golf's too hard.
It's just impressive to watch them and what they do and how much better they are than not everybody in the AFC, not everybody in the Eastern Conference, but in the whole freaking world where they breed these athletes to just go out there and represent for country. I have thoroughly enjoyed the Olympics, Jay. Very much so. And maybe when we do another Mount Rushmore, Simone Biles or Katie Ledecky, they take their step on top of that Mount Rushmore as well. But we do have to pivot to talk about the NFL news and the big quarterback injury that is sort of permeating across the space, man. Justin Herbert and everything that's going on with his foot injury right now. I believe you put some notes in here that it was diagnosed plantar. Is it plantar fasciitis or is it plantar fascia? Which one is it?
Yeah, so that's the weird part as far as the reporting goes and why I was trying to look more into it. Adam Schefter went, I believe it was on McAfee's show or on one of the shows, and he said it was plantar fascia, which in line you would say it's probably plantar fasciitis, but maybe it's a more acute form of that. Or the reason he's going in the boot is so he doesn't develop plantar fasciitis. But plantar fasciitis is actually like a chronic thing and can permeate for multiple years and even potentially for people's life, depending on how bad it is. So he's in a walking boot for 4 to 6 weeks. They're saying he's be ready for the season. We'll see, right? People who don't know what plantar fasciitis is, it's basically a ligament or muscle that goes from your heel to the front of your foot. So every time you step down on your heel, you feel a ton of pain. That's why he's in the walking boot. And it's also why there's belief that it could permeate into the season because it's not going to heal naturally if he's still walking around practicing all these things. He has to stay off that foot, pray it heals, but there's potential for it to get worse or linger all the way through the season, unfortunately. Schefter said that it's just something that's not going to heal.
Where did you see 4 to 6 weeks at, man? 4 to 6 weeks?
Well, he's going to be in the boot for 2 weeks, but then it's going to be longer than that because that's just him to come back to practice, and we don't know how long the actual pain and discomfort on that heel is going to linger, which is the harder part of the equation, not just him returning to practice. But yeah, it's definitely 2 weeks in the walking boot for sure.
Justin Herbert is somebody, I believe we talked about him last week, and I know we discussed him privately in our Discord, and we're making jest of some of his value, but we talked about him being a fraudulent valued quarterback. And by that, I mean, you look on KTC and he's barely hanging on inside the top 12 as is, Jay. I think he's like 10th or 11th.
He's 10 right now.
Pre-foot injury, he was right there, barely inside that top 12. This is a season in which we don't anticipate them dropping back and throwing the ball 650 times. It was going to be a new look offense. He lost a Hall of Fame caliber receiver in Keenan Allen. He lost another big play threat in Mike Williams. So the expectation level for Herbert going into this year, Jay, was already a little bit tempered. It was already adjusted to a certain degree. And now you compound the fact that he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. The offense, they're probably going to do what we expected them to do. Now, they got here in a different way, but they're probably just going to run the hell out of the ball this year to try to protect their franchise quarterback. This is a situation, I don't know, man. He's the type of quarterback that if I pose it in the chat in our Discord, if you could pivot off of him in Dynasty and potentially get a little bit younger and pick up a plus on Herbert, whatever that is for your league, it would be a move that I would consider making. I just do not believe with the youthfulness of the quarterbacks that we have coming in from 2024, and that's a whole nother conversation. And some of the guys right behind him, I think long gone are the days where Justin Herbert was this BAM tier, 3 first-round picks in Dynasty type quarterback. Like, long gone are those days. They were talking in the chat, would you give up a first and Brandon Ayuk for him? That's how far sort of we've fallen from the Justin Herbert is a BAM tier elite. You've got to have him in fantasy football type quarterback. This is just, it's not what you want to see early on, and it ain't his fault, but it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, Jimbo, this is a Dak shirt, by the way. I got it when I was at Texas Stadium. But yeah, the thing with Herbert, you mentioned it. It was a prove-it year for him because can he do it on limited volume and still be successful and still be usable for fantasy? And it only gives Greg Roman and the offense a more of an excuse to continue to pound the rock. And I think it's interesting, a conversation, to talk about in some of these early games, do they consider sitting him simply because they do want to win games, but if they're not going to pass the ball anyways, what is the incentive to have him out there and trying to win for the team?
Well, stop. Don't say it like they're going to pass the ball. So, we're not going down sitting out games. I'm not even going to allow you to go down that path. Like, that has nothing to do with week 1, week 2. I'm talking about the perception of what Justin Herbert is to the community. He's not sitting out any damn games, man. That's not happening.
Okay, but the perception wasn't good to begin with. But why are you so confident it's not going to happen? Why are you so confident it's not going to happen?
If he's healthy to play, you think he's not going to play, Jay?
Again, it's about when you have plantar fasciitis, he's in a walking boot because he can't step on his heel. How are you going to drop back and be plant on your back foot if you can't step on your heel? That's a problem, right? So it is something that you have to be aware that there is a potential for missed games. Like, this is going to be an issue, and his value could take even further of a hit because of that. Not just because of the offense and the upside, but there is a world where he is even worse than expected simply because his foot isn't healthy. And I think that's something that you have to factor in as well. It could potentially hurt him if he can't operate at full capacity because he's in pain every time he takes a step.
I think you're just taking it like 5 steps too far too soon. Yeah, I think you're taking it too far too soon. We still have 4 weeks until the season starts.
You go, though?
Well, we still have 4. I'm not going sitting out games. Like, I'm not going there.
But if we're talking value, right? I think these quarterbacks I'm very confident in: Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, which is all the way down to QB 17, right? Baker Mayfield or Justin Herbert?
Justin Herbert.
Okay, then you go Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Bryce Young, or Justin Herbert?
Herbert. The answer is Herbert overall.
What about Kirk Cousins? Because the value's low.
No.
But so he's basically firmly entrenched behind all those quarterbacks I just mentioned, which puts him at QB 18, and everyone behind him is young and potentially ascending depending on how they play.
Yeah, I would take Goff or Tua or those guys, but I'm not taking no damn Bryce Young or Drake May over him. Come on, get out of here. Another injury news that happened, Jay. Let's see how far you'll take this one. Puka Nacua left practice with a potential knee issue. There are a lot of Twitter video doctors that diagnosed him from their house, and they said it's a PCL sprain. So PCL sprain for Puka Nacua. How many games is he going to miss, Jay Rich?
That's difficult. It could be a game or two, but I mean, the PCL is probably the least difficult to come back from of all the injuries between the MCL, the ACL. I think the only issue is we haven't heard the potential severity. I imagine it's not too bad, and especially when it's the Twitter doctor saying, well, it could be a PCL sprain. We'll see. I think for me, this is more interesting because you have Cooper Kupp was hurt last year. Puka Nacua was great. And now Puka Nacua is a little bit banged up, and you're hearing reports that Cooper Kupp is the best he's looked in like 2 or 3 years. So maybe it's time we start diversifying, picking up some Cooper Kupp. But question for you, though, would you fade Puka Nacua in some of your best ball drafts simply because of this potential scare? Not, it's not a scare yet. There's no official news, but no, you have no fears over him right now?
No. Zero. I do have fears about DeAndre Hopkins, I did see the report, and I think we all saw the report that DeAndre Hopkins is potentially missing 4 to 6 weeks with an MCL sprain/tear. He did this in the same knee, I believe, 2 years ago in the 2022 season and missed 4 games. I believe he missed some time with that, but this comes at a very bad time. Started training camp, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new wide receiver running mate in Calvin Ridley. So this is a critical time for Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley and the offense to get in sync. And Hopkins is out with a knee issue. This is not going to require surgery, just time for DeAndre Hopkins to heal. But he is going to miss all of the offseason activities, which, again, this is critical install period. What are your thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins, who has seen his value plummet just like Bitcoin and ETH over the past 24 hours, Jay Rich? 4 to 6 weeks for Nuke. What does this mean for him?
I think it just means a slow start, right? You may not get 100% Nuke till, October or so, right? You go 4 weeks, that's September. 6 weeks, you're in mid-September. Maybe a ramp-up period. I think the only good side is that Hopkins does have the rapport with Will Levis to some extent, right? Could be better, but they did play together last year. So there is that aspect, and then now he can take a lot of reps with Ridley. So hopefully by the time they come back together and everyone's healthy, they're going to be good to go. But Ray, it was actually just reported by Schefter, Puka Nacua is week to week. So it's probably, 2 weeks maybe. Hopefully not more than 3, but I believe it was the same. I believe it was the same report with Cooper Kupp last year. He was week to week as well. So just keep that in mind. That I'm pretty sure that's what happened with Cooper Kupp. It wasn't that he was day to day or we'll see. It was he's week to week. We'll see how it goes. So we'll see.
And this literally just broke. I'm gonna throw it on the screen right here. Adam Schefter, Puka Nacua, week to week. This injury, the injury that happened over the weekend, described as, in quotes, not serious, Jay Rich. So not serious. Puka Nacua, week to week. If it's me, Jay, you bubble wrap him. He's done. No more training camp for Puka Nacua. 0 training camp for Puka Nacua. He's done. We'll see you week 1 of the 2024 NFL season, Jay. But yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, are you full fade this season on Nuke? Are you out on DeAndre Hopkins this year? Just in or out on Hopkins?
I wouldn't say I'm out. No, I think at this point his value's probably in the shitter, but at the same time he could be a great second half guy, right? I think when you talk about Levis, there's some fears about what he could be, which is valid. Right now it's looking like it's gonna be Ridley for at least a couple weeks, and then we'll see what ends up happening. But I think there is a bit of built-in trust and security with Hopkins, especially if he's running some of the shorter routes. But we'll have to see how Callahan uses them. I think that's the biggest question. And the bigger thing for me is I think the volume is going to be there. A lot of people do project that, but I think there is going to be enough pass volume. We'll see if it's good or bad for Hopkins and Ridley to both thrive. We'll have to just wait for Hopkins to be healthy.
Jay, our boy, our collective boy, Xavier Legette's a little banged up, man. Can you give us some positive news on Legette?
I don't have any positive news because it's been South Carolina stud, Xavier Legette. But yeah, he has a lower leg injury. It's like we're reporting hockey injuries out here. We don't even know if it's the knee, if it's the shin, if it's the anything. But they did get x-rays to test for potential fracture. There was no issues with the x-ray. It came back clear. So just a little bit banged up. Probably going to take some time off and see what happens. But clearly we want Legette to be at practice and we want him to be developing with Bryce Young, moving up that depth chart, but we'll see if anything happens with him. Seems like he's doing fairly well so far, and Canales has been praising him a lot. So hopefully it's just a bit of a setback and doesn't impact his potential upside overall.
All right, Jay. And then Ladd McConkey was also banged up a little bit in practice. Any news on McConkey and his little knee tweak injury scare that we saw?
No, I haven't seen anything on McConkey other than, like you said, it's weird. We get these small reports, but there's nothing really official about it.
Yeah.
It's probably just a bit of tightness, whether it's in the knee or in the shin or whatever it is.
And you do
see that a lot.
It looked like a knee, man, but He walked off the field. They said it was
Yeah.
tweaked, and it was described as a lower leg injury. Don't know what that really is, but
Legs are
hopefully,
big, right?
yeah,
This is
nothing
tough.
too serious, Jay. Yeah, nothing too serious. But I do want to talk about, because you brought him up, and it's a great segue. You brought up the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, and pre-show you were talking about how excited you were for Will Levis. But with this Hopkins injury, this obviously means that there's going to be more opportunity for other players on the Titans wide receiver core. Yeah, you're talking about Nick Westbrook-Akine, Kyle Phillips, Treylon Burks is still there. So Tyler Boyd, who they brought in from Cincinnati. But the big beneficiary of this injury, I believe, and we all should be operating on the same notion, that it's very, 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 very big for Calvin Ridley. This is going to be more opportunity for Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley was second in the league in routes run last year. He and Garrett Wilson just getting it done, running, running, running. And there are quite a bit of reports coming out of Tennessee, Jay, and I quote, with every passing day of watching Calvin Ridley at Titans camp, the more confident I am the Jaguars are morons. His usage last season was a fireable offense. They painted this skill set into a very stupid box. This is a player you force the ball to at every level of the field. This was a direct quote from Easton Freeze, who is a beat reporter for the Tennessee Titans, at Easton Freeze on XJ. Pretty resounding vote of confidence for Calvin Ridley and how well he's performed so far through Titans camp. How do you feel about Ridley and his sort of ceiling right now, still being drafted in the 5th round of underdog? We have not seen a big spike in his value yet. Calvin Ridley, I was expecting 130, 140 targets this year. DeAndre Hopkins, 4 to 6 weeks, older player, chemistry not there to start. Just how good can Calvin Ridley be in this Brian Callahan offense, who may have to just use him, Jay, like his version of Jamar Chase when he was in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest question mark, right? You talk about the Jaguars and their utilization of him. Clearly, they didn't know how to correctly use him and Christian Kirk, but you think now it's just Calvin Ridley. Like, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins will be back, and, we like Tyler Boyd, but I think the bigger part is Tyler Boyd knows how to operate next to an alpha wide receiver, right? He's already done this for years and years. He's been operating this Callahan offense, playing next to Jamar Chase. Now, I don't think they have quite the same skill set, but I think when you're talking about, especially in the short and intermediate area, Ridley can get open, but he's not going to produce after the catch the way Jamar Chase will. But if you're talking about just getting open and getting the ball, I think Ridley can be as good, if not better, at separating between the route. Chase is much better at the catch point and much closer when the ball is on the way. So when I talk about Ridley, the issue for me isn't so much whether Ridley can get it done. It's what does the volume look like? Because hopefully it's high. We expect it to be fairly high. And then ultimately, what is Will Levis going to produce? Is he going to be efficient? Is he going to be good enough for fantasy? Or are we going to be kind of juggling between 10 targets a game for Ridley that are inefficient, and he only gets, 5 receptions for what, 50 yards, and we're disappointed, even though the volume is there. You keep chasing that when DeAndre Hopkins is back. I think he deserves a small bump, but for me, the biggest question to you is, do you believe that this is going to carry on beyond DeAndre Hopkins coming back? Because I think once he comes back, they're back to co-alphas, because I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is losing a ton of snaps and targets to Calvin Ridley.
I do believe this is not good for DeAndre Hopkins and Will Levis. Like, if you played ball, you know exactly what's going on right now. It is a new situation. It's a new system. So this is like critical install, get chemistry together, practice period, that he and Hopkins are not going to have that type of chemistry. I'm full fade DeAndre Hopkins for the 2024 season. I've got probably 11% exposure across all tournaments so far, but I will not draft another DeAndre Hopkins. I got that all early. I caught some CLV on that, and I'm not going to touch him. This is just a situation where I'm not all the way in on Will Levis, Jay. This is a team that threw the ball, I believe, the second worst amount of times. It was like the Niners and then the Titans, who they don't throw the ball. They did not throw the ball last season a lot. And I think Will Levis, based on his 9-game sample size, there are some things that he just does not do well. There are some routes and some concepts that he has not shown a proficiency at right now. We dove into that in our Discord like late into the night last Thursday night. Calvin Ridley's incredible, but this entire bet on this offense on Calvin Ridley, it hinges and predicates on Will Levis. If you are in on Will Levis and you believe that Brian Callahan is going to help him elevate his game, take it to another level, then you should absolutely be buying in to Calvin Ridley. I don't think this is bad at all. I saw somebody in the chat, I think Matt Voss said, I think it could be bad for Ridley. I don't want them to use him like the Jags did as the boundary X. He's going to play the X. Tyler Boyd is going to play in the slot, and Ridley's going to be the X. Now, what you're hoping for is that Callahan and the Titans move him around and deploy him in different ways in the offense, but Calvin Ridley is going to be the X. So, again, I think this is good for Calvin Ridley. His volume, his perceived volume, what he's going to get. Is he going to be able to convert that? That is going to hinge on the right arm of Will Levis, Jay. But let's talk about another wide receiver core that a lot of people are excited about. A lot of people are excited, especially about the wide receiver 4 on this team. Somehow, this guy's going to be the number one option. And it's just what we continue to talk about, man. I see analyst after analyst after analyst tell me that this guy who literally was the wide receiver 4 or 5 is going to usurp and jump everybody and be the top dog in Green Bay. And then we get family night. Oh, Green Bay, family night, Jay Rich. Did you see those family night snap counts? Did you happen to see what happened on family night, Jay Rich?
I saw the clips, though.
Well, there are some good clips, and we're actually going to show you some of those clips from one Jordan Love at family night. Let's pull them up, Jay. Yeah, Jordan Love just dotting up, folks. This is family night. Jordan Love, just beautiful throws, Jay. After throws. You see that Christian Watson right there. What else do we have from Jordan Love? Jordan Love going deep. Who's he airing it out to this time? There's Jaden Reed, 4 touchdown down there. Love this, man. Just got a beautiful throw. Romeo Doubs going up, climbing the ladder. Who else we got, Jay? Who else we got, Jay? Drop it in the bucket. Jordan Love just showing out.
Not even a receiver. Just drop it in the bucket.
Just showing out. But coming out of that, everybody was talking about the snaps and who played what. So let me just read them to you. Romeo Doubs on family night out of 26 plays with Jordan Love. Doubs was out there 21. Watson was out there 19. Jaden Reed was out there 16 times. And then you had Dontavian Wicks, 6 snaps with Jordan Love, Bo Melton 5, and Grant DuBose 2. Here was the report coming out of Green Bay, Jay, as my TV has just turned on. The biggest surprise here by far is that receiver Dontavian Wicks, who caught on in the second half of the 23 season, only got 6 reps with Jordan Love on family night. Previous reports from training camp claimed he's been on a 4-man rotation with Doubs, Watson, and Reed, but the televised snap count puts him closer to Bo Melton and Grant DuBose. Talk about him, Jay. Talk about those Packers receivers, Jay Rich. Talk about him, baby.
It's definitely concerning if you're a big Wicks truther. It's not looking so good for those people. I think the bigger point, Ray, is that it's looking like he's probably going to be Christian Watson's backup. We know that Christian Watson gets hurt all the time. He has chronic hamstring issues, and he's been missing games left and right ever since he entered the NFL. And so now you look at Wicks, you say, how is he going to get on the field? It seems like it's going to take a Christian Watson injury or a Romeo Doubs injury to ultimately get him on the field. He's a good receiver. I think he's a guy that can definitely show out. There's a world where he can get on the field, but ultimately right now, the way it shakes out, it's probably not going to happen simply because they want to get him on the field if everyone is healthy. And so if you're holding Wicks, I think you just kind of keep holding, but if you could sell him to someone who thinks he's going to ascend, maybe you make that move, but I don't know who's going to be buying when you're seeing things like this happen. It's not like there's any semblance of a split. And Ray, are you concerned at all seeing Jaden Reed only in on 16? Once again, kind of seeing that slightly lower snap count for Jaden Reed.
If you go watch the video that I posted a month ago about the Trinity, what did I say? He's the slot receiver, period. He's the slot. So if they're running out 12, it's probably going to be Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. If they're rolling out 11, it's going to be Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Jaden Reed with Dontavian Wicks rotating in between. This was not a surprise moment. Like he's not taking the job from Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson or Jaden Reed. It's a nice 4-man, 5-man Packers wide receiver room. You sprinkle in the tight ends, a running game. But these players already, they've got predefined roles in this offense, Jay. And there is no Dontavian Wicks season where he's taking over. I'm telling you that right now. Clip it, bookmark it. I like the player too. He's a fun, exciting underdog to root for, but I'm telling you, idiots, stop it. He's not ascending to the wide receiver 1 chair. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing, Jay? Jeez,
hey, you never know. Man. You never know. Do you want to touch on the running backs? because we didn't talk about Marshawn Lloyd, right? And how he may be missing some time
No, we
as
did
well.
not.
And it's looking like A.J. Dillon's going to be the 2. And so the only reason I bring this up is because I was kind of in on Jacobs, right? And I was thinking, you know, if for some reason he does get majority snap shares, like, we like this offense. Everyone wants Jaden Reed. They want Christian Watson. They want Wicks. They want Musk. Like, everyone wants this. And it's a similar situation with the Texans. No one's really drafting Joe Mixon like he can be this top running back simply off of scoring volume. And it could be very similar for Jacobs, who in my opinion is a better running back. And if Dillon is the RB2, why wouldn't that open up Jacobs to a 50 reception season? Now, again, that's a lot of ifs for a guy coming off a pretty bad season. But there is a world, I think, where Jacobs could be really, really good. And it's not talked about because all the focus is on the receivers and the pass catchers, when that running back room is shaping out very, very nicely for Josh Jacobs right now.
Jay, I just got I saw somebody send me a message. I see a who would you rather have, a little would you rather Calvin Ridley edition. You want to do a little would you rather Calvin Ridley edition real quick?
Let's do it.
All right, hit the music. Cue it up. Would you rather Calvin Ridley edition. Where's it at? Is it on? Is the wake up music on? I can't hear anything. I can't hear. Okay, there it is. You had it low, man. Turn that shit up a little bit, man. It's Monday morning. You're fucking scared, pussyfooting around. Turn the music up.
No, people are going to complain because the music's too loud. It always happens.
Calvin Ridley. I don't give a damn what they say. Ridley or Jaden Reed, Jay?
For Dynasty or this season? Because that matters to me.
This season.
I'm taking Ridley.
Okay, Calvin Ridley or Rashee Rice? I'm making them hard. Come on, Jay.
I gotta take Ridley.
Okay, Calvin Ridley or Deontay Johnson?
Oh, man. I think I'll take Deontay. I think Deontay gets more targets. And that's the only reason why I'm gonna take him.
All right, I'm jumping up the rung here. Calvin Ridley, right. Chris Olave. Calvin Ridley, Michael Pittman.
I'll take Michael Pittman, but the ceiling's a little low for Michael Pittman right now. We'll see. We'll see.
Last one. We're going to just go with this former team. Calvin Ridley or T. Higgins this season?
Calvin Ridley.
All right. This is the clip. Here's why you're so in on Ridley. It was this, wasn't it? Is this what it is, Jay? Is this clip of Will Levis just doing it for you? Are you just praying that instead of that 15, that's number 0? Is it this Will Levis clip, Jay? Just tell me if it's this clip that has you so in on Will Levis and Robert. Is this the one that did it for you? Is that it, Jay? Is that the clip, Jay? Is that why you're so in on Ridley, that Will Levis clip? Is that the one that's doing it for you, Jay?
I wouldn't say it's doing it for me, but there's something about Will Levis, Ray, and I don't know what it is. I don't want to be that guy, but he throws a really pretty ball. I don't know if he's going to have time in the pocket. I don't know if he's going to be able to throw it accurately. I don't know if he's going to be on time, but hot damn, Ray, he can throw a nice deep ball. He can.
Okay.
And so if Ridley's getting down the field, I'm excited. But I was in on Levis with Hopkins and Ridley. I think there is some question marks when it's just Ridley, because that's not as good overall for the offense.
Well, Jay, let's talk about an offense that we don't anticipate being very good, yet I continue to see that this young player is taking first-team reps. It's on a rotation basis. He's doing some good things. He's doing some not-so-good things. But here's what Sean Payton said about first-round pick quarterback Bo Nix. Sean Payton is pleased with Bo Nix's patience in high-pressure situations. Even said it's similar, Jay Rich.
No.
To Drew Brees.
Oh.
Said it's similar to Brees. Listen, let me finish.
Brees in San Diego?
Let me finish talking about the hype that is one Bo Nix that we're going to have to deal with this season. Said it's similar to that of Drew Brees. Jay Rich, he doesn't take a lot of sacks. I think he knows when the play is over. It's time to go. Then I think he can make plays when he's going. I used to say this all the time. The sack numbers are a reflection more on the quarterback than the offensive line. Drew Brees was one of those guys. He was a tough sack. The ball came out quickly. And I think Bo has traits like that. That's a direct quote from Sean Payton. Direct quote. Drew Brees, Bo Nix, same sentence. All right. He's hitting Cortland Sutton, throwing the ball to Greg Dulcich. Talk about it, Jay, because the reports out of your camp, out of New England, is Drake May isn't even better than Joe Milton. He's not going to play. He's no good. Wasted pick. Bo Nix, I'm getting. He's Drew Brees, man. He's got a tough sack. He's tough to sack. The ball comes out quick. He knows when the play is over. Are you a little in on Bo Nix here? Because you've talked real greasy about Mr. Nix of late. So are you in on Bo Nix?
No, Ray. I'm not in on Bo Nix because Sean Payton is probably the ultimate hype man. It doesn't really matter which player he's talking about. He's always hyping him up. Outside of Russell Wilson, I haven't found a player that Sean Payton has hated in a while, right? This is where, you have to talk. I mean, I guess you don't have to. We've seen this before. But if you're drafting a guy at 12 overall, a lot of people think he was drafted too high. Comparisons to Drew Brees, and I think there is a world where Bo Nix is good at avoiding sacks. I mean, he went to Auburn. They didn't have any receivers. So when he did have to throw the ball, he either got sacked or he threw up a prayer. Then you go to Oregon, much faster pace, a lot of dink and dunk. If they run a similar style offense, he is going to be a tough sack, and he's going to get the ball out quick and hopefully for him, make good decisions. But for fantasy purposes and what we're going to see, it still could be few and far between from what we're hoping for, because if he's not throwing down the field and he's not making big plays and they continue to run the ball, which we kind of expect out of this offense, a lot of balance and then dink and dunk to move the field and very, very short and slow down the field, I don't think we're going to see a lot of upside from Bo Nix, but maybe he'll surprise me. Do you feel any differently about Nix?
I will just be wrong. Here's what I'm going to say.
We're sticking to your guns, right? I'm not moving.
This is ill-advised advice. You should never fade any single player. But he's one where I'm kind of good on letting that situation play out, letting it all transpire, and then if he escapes this season and it looks like we've got a little something there, then I will adjust going into next season, right? I don't want to be first to the Bo Nix party. I am fine being the guy that can't go on Twitter and be like, I told you Bo Nix was going to be a stud. I'm fine being late to the party on that one. I'm good, but I'm the fact that he's taking first team reps, if you did invest in him early in your rookie drafts, at least there's some chance that there's some immediate return, whether you trade that player or you get some production. Your boy Troy Franklin, from what I've heard, not
good.
I wouldn't say not good, but nothing spectacular. Nothing. He's not generating that type of special rookie buzz that's getting you excited for him potentially coming on the field and making some significant impact on our fantasy roster. So haven't seen a lot about Troy Franklin in that category, Jay, but I have started to see a lot about this player. And I'm just telling you right now, Jay, I'm telling you right now, it's probably not a good bet. It's probably not a good bet, but I don't want to miss out this year. And we continued to hear little rumblings last year about Kyren Williams, Kyren Williams this, and he's going to get on the field and play. Let me just read to you what is happening. These are beat reporters from the Las Vegas Raiders talking about Christian McCaffrey 2.0, Dylan Laube. I have been searching for a white running back to put my hat on for a long time. Max Borghi failed us. Jake Smith is still in college after 20 years. My boy Danny Woodhead is no longer in the league. Dylan Laube. Here's Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Raiders, talking about the running backs. It's wide open. It's wide open everywhere. It's competition. And I know it's kind of cliche, but it's true. Zamir's gotten better as far as catching the ball out of the backfield and blitz pickup. And there are some rookies out there that we see flashing. There's another quote from a Raiders beat reporter. The Raiders have put a lot on Dylan Laube's plate. It's not unusual to see him lined up in the backfield, the slot, or out wide. They have handed him the ball, pitched it to him, thrown it to him on screens, intermediate routes, and down the field. This is from another beat reporter from the Raiders. Dylan Laube, the rookie out of New Hampshire, has been getting a lot of work on third downs, even before veteran backup Amir Abdullah missed practice on Friday. Zamir White and Alexander Madison seemed set atop the depth chart, but Laube thinks his skill set as a receiver might create opportunities for him on third down, and that's from Vic Taufor of The Athletic. Jay Rich, I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker. I'm in, Jay Rich. Dylan Laube. I'm drafting him every time. Round 18, final pick and underdog. I don't
Yeah.
care if he's correlated or not. I'm just drafting him I'm not doing silly things and taking him in the 12th or the 13th, but every time I'm in the final round of underdog, I'm just pressing Dylan Laube. I'm hitting the draft button, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, Laube's a player that we saw at the Senior Bowl who actually, like firsthand, we saw how good he is as a pass catcher in some blitz pickup stuff and his versatility. Because even as a running back, he looked pretty good as well. So I think when you talk about Zamir White, we kind of know what he is. We know what he does well. We'll see if he improves as a pass catcher, but I doubt that he's at the level of Dylan Laube. I think there's a world where the Raiders don't need to have Ameer Abdullah other than for depth purposes. There's no point of them trotting him out there because ultimately him improving isn't going to happen. We know who he is in the NFL, and there's a world where Dylan Laube can really make an impact on this team. So if you got some Dylan Laube shares or you're trying to pick some up, I think it's a good bet because you do see things like this pop up, and we're heading into preseason week 1. Dylan Laube could have a massive second half, right? Running as the third back, maybe even earlier than that. And that's what you're going to want to pay attention to because that's what could get him on the field. And you look at this Raiders depth chart, plenty of pass catching opportunities. I think the only question, Ray, is are we going to see the same type of volume to the backs that we saw before? And I think once Pierce took over, we didn't see as much passing volume towards the running backs. But honestly, Laube was, what, a 5th rounder? So at that point, anything you get out of him is worth it. And I think if you do have him, you should hold him and see what happens.
Well, Jay, everybody in the chat is saying that he's free. He's just free in rookie drafts,
Yeah.
So he didn't cost you anything. There were a couple of people saying that somebody said pump the brakes on him. He's a role player. No, and there's what I'm saying is not he's coming in and he's going to be the starting running back out of the gate. No, that's Zamir White. You've got a veteran there. And you've got multiple veterans. Ameer Abdullah, you've got Alexander Mattison. I do believe that those are better suited players to where, let's just say hypothetically, knock on wood, something happened to Zamir White today. I don't believe that Dylan Laube is going to be the starting running back for the Raiders. I'm looking for a role. I'm trying to find a role that can expand. And while the Kyron example is the extreme of all extremes, where he got the role and then he was just the guy, you normally don't see that across the NFL. They're typically, you are slotted into a role. But as Mog said in the chat, this is, I'm not fading this news, Jay.
It's not nothing.
This to me is not a nothing burger. It's not just the Cowboys. Oh, Deuce Vaughn has looked more explosive this offseason. I'm not buying that. Like, that doesn't get it there. But when you've got multiple people talking about the same player in this positive light on a running back room, just like, and let's just be honest, Jay Rich, does Zamir White just scare the hell out of you? Like, he is so good at an all-around running back skill set that he could not cede some work to a more competent pass catcher? The answer is no.
Yeah, no chance.
Alexander Mattison does not incite that fear. Ameer Abdullah, Brandon Bolden, none of those guys do. So on a team that could be struggling to find its way potentially, looking for some different options, give me some Dylan Laube, man. I'm in at cost on Dylan Laube. But we have got to get into one of the things that I and the people, Jay Rich, have wanted to talk to you about this whole damn show. Your favorite player in the world. Wow. He ain't dead yet. I know you thought he was gone, Jay. No, you thought he was gone. You want him gone, but he's still there. We're going to go into that right after this little break. Run them likes up. If you're here watching the stream, hit the like button. We'll be right back. All right, Jay, appreciate everybody. Make sure you hit that like button if you're watching the stream. Help your boys grow over here on YouTube. Jay Rich, you thought he was gone. You thought he was dead. Hit the music, Jay. Hit the music, Jay. Hit the music, because I'm going to give you the full screen to talk about your favorite player in the league who looks like he just might win this job outright. Okay. All the way hailing from Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever the hell he's from.
Woo!
Product from UGA, transfers to The Ohio State, first-round pick of the Chicago Bears, and potential new starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jay Rich, sound off on your boy. Pop off. Justin Fields. Woo! Apparently out there lighting it up at Steelers camp. No Russell Wilson. He is just airing it out to George Pickens, Calvin Austin, Najee Harris, and Jalen Warren, picking up blitz pickups, giving them time. Arthur Smith, Reclamation Project, Justin Fields. Jay, how you feeling about your arch enemy, your nemesis, Justin Fields, and his potential chances of starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Here,
I think the biggest thing
where you at?
I think the biggest thing with Justin Fields, honestly, is to pay attention to the language that's coming out of
Turn the
Steelers
music
camp.
off, Jay. Turn the music off so we can hear you. I need to make sure I hear you here. What do we got?
So the biggest thing with this news, overall, so actually Ari Mirov, the insider, who I know personally, me and Ari, we have a connection. But the bigger thing here is that the language to which was going on with the Steelers, they signed Russell Wilson. They said he is the starter, and Justin Fields was a developmental guy. And then the language changed throughout the offseason as well. Russell Wilson has pole position. And it's like, last time I checked, this is not an F1 race. This is the NFL. And so whatever the hell pole position means, I don't know. But now Russell Wilson is hurt, and he believes there is a real chance that this is a open competition right now in Pittsburgh. And so throughout the preseason, we're probably going to see both guys take reps with the first team. And Ray, you can say I hate Justin Fields all you want, but I have said and been on record as saying Arthur Smith with a quarterback like Justin Fields is very exciting because he likes to run the ball and he can be very effective in play action. So you talk about what could be in this Arthur Smith offense. Does it mean a ton of volume? Probably not. But in terms of potential efficiency, if Fields is good, yes, of course, that it could happen. The question remains is, what is his chance to ultimately win the job? That's the biggest question right now. While Russ is out, it's looking pretty good. And it's sounding like if it's a tie, it's still going to lean Russ because he's a little bit more experienced. But of course, there's a world where Fields wins this job. And at that point, you want him, because if Justin Fields is the starting quarterback, whether he's throwing for 100 yards or 200 yards, he can always run for 50 or 60, and that's worth it in fantasy football. But Ray, how are you with Justin Fields? Would you trade for him? Would you keep him on your rosters? I actually think I got a trade for Justin Fields for like a second rounder very recently, and I wasn't sure what to do with it because it seems like a good trade, and especially in a league where I have a lot of QB depth. But I don't know. Is he worth a second? Should you hold out for a first? What are you doing with Justin Fields?
I'll say what I said last night. Sometimes a change of scenery, somebody that believes in you, some confidence in you, goes a long way. Arthur Smith might have been abysmal as a head coach of the Atlanta Falcons in his deployment of his offensive weapons, but when he was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee, not many people had a problem with what he was doing with Ryan Tannehill and how he was able to really kind of take what people thought was a dead version of Ryan Tannehill and put him in a very good light. I mean, he had that Tennessee Titans team playing damn good ball when they moved on from Marcus Mariota to Ryan Tannehill. Mike Tomlin, he's one of the best coaches to ever lace him up, right? One of the best coaches in NFL history, and this could be the change of scenery that Fields needed. Potentially an offense that wants to run the ball a little bit more. They've continued to praise Najee Harris and Jalen Warren out of training camp about how they're going to be ready to assume the shoulder and the work in that offense. This could be very good for him. Are you out there? Am I out there buying him? No, I'm not going to lie and be like I bought Justin Fields. I think I've made some trades in the offseason. There was a massive trade that I made in the offseason where I think I got him as a throw-in for a deal, or people were getting rid of him once Chicago Bears made their move. So he was very, very cheap. Second round picks potentially. At this stage, I don't know if the hype is really caught up to what's actually happening on the field, because I think a lot of people still assume that Russ is going to start. If when healthy, he's the starter week one. Yeah. But every single beat reporter that I'm seeing, they're talking about how smooth he looks, and he's the QB2 according to the depth chart, but he should be the QB1. So if you've had him and you're looking for that moment to move him, it's probably on the way. I'll just say this, he's going to play at some point, whether it's week 1, week 4, week 8, he's going to be on the field for Pittsburgh for some period of time. And then at that point, whatever you decide to do with that asset, that's your prerogative. But he's going to play for Pittsburgh this year, no doubt.
So I think the bigger thing is that if he did win that starting job, do you think you should ride it out with Fields and see what happens, week 1, week 2, week 3? Because to your point, if Russ starts the season as a starting quarterback, he probably has that job for some time until he sinks it up too much and then they go to Fields. But maybe there's a world where they go to Fields, and even if Fields isn't, the best, they don't necessarily turn it back to Russ because they know what Russ is. But I think to your point, the problem is you don't know which guy's going to start. You don't know how many games. And if you're buying this offense right now, you're just praying they're going to be efficient enough to support George Pickens, because we know the running game's probably going to be good, but you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. And I think for Pickens, I probably want it to be Russ. But if you have Fields and you're a Fields fan, maybe you want it to be Fields.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters. Like whoever's in, they're going to throw George Pickens the ball. Roman Wilson is hurt. I like what they're hearing about Calvin Austin in different ways, but it's going to be George Pickens. I don't think it really matters who the quarterback is, but I am buying stock into Justin Fields making the most of his opportunity and getting a chance to perform on the field for Pittsburgh. I don't believe it's a matter of if he plays, it's when he gets on the field to play for the Steelers, whether that's week 1, week 4, week 8, week 12. He's going to have snaps and reps with the Steelers on Sundays. I truly believe that, Jay. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers and talk about some news coming out of Carolina with their running back. Second round pick, Jonathan Brooks from the University of Texas. It's being reported he will not play a single snap this preseason. It was expected this spring. Something around week 3 or week 4 would be great, but that doesn't mean Brooks won't be active before then. This was Dave Canales speaking about Jonathan Brooks, who's not going to do anything through preseason and probably not playing the first month of the NFL season. Talk to me about what this does for Brooks' value, in your opinion. Thinking about this running back, who a lot of people are excited about, but let's just be very honest. Brooks, he was not some slam dunk home run running back prospect out of Texas. He wasn't. He just wasn't. Good player. I like Jonathan Brooks. Had he not been injured, he probably would have been the runaway RB1 in this class. But you're not talking about a Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall caliber of running back prospect on the doorsteps of a very strong potential 2025 class. With him not being ready, Jay, like, just what does this do for your expectation for Jonathan Brooks? It's been draft Chuba Hubbard season for me. I was on Underdog with Hayden Winks and Josh Norris, and I told everybody a month and a half ago, if Canales is as smart as we think he is, and this running back is this big of a cog and piece of an offense as people are talking about, why the hell would they rush him back to get on the field week 1 for a team that's not going to win the division? They're building for the future. Some things just make their football common sense things, Jay. And this was a common sense football idea that Jonathan Brooks, you probably should not expect him to do much of anything to start the season.
Yeah, I think that it's good for us because, at least for me, I wasn't seeing anything about Brooks. And I talked about this with Vanek when he was on the show. Like, I hadn't seen anything about the timeline, what we were expecting, if he was practicing, if he was doing walkthroughs, like nothing about Brooks. And he was one of their highest draft picks, and it's all about Xavier Legette. So to get this report, at least it gives you some clarity to when you're drafting. You say, okay, can I stomach, a month of very limited production? Right. And if he comes back earlier,
of no production.
Well, yeah, sorry, I have no production, and then if he comes back earlier, great. But to your point, you do have Chuba Hubbard, but the encouraging sign is Canales, one, being open and honest about the situation. I think he's a guy that for, the whole time he's been the head coach, has been pretty open and honest about what's going on around the team, and you can trust what he says. But the other thing, as you mentioned, he talked about how he wants to run the ball. He wants to run the ball. And if it was up to him, he would run the ball, which is so interesting because that is not what happened in Tampa Bay last season. But it seems like it's this rendition of the team and how they're building with Bryce Young still trying to figure out his development. They want to run the ball. And so Chuba Hubbard absolutely goes up in value. But if Brooks keeps taking hits and keeps falling down boards, maybe you do want to take a couple shots because, to your point, it's not going to be the first month, maybe even 2 months, but late in that year, if he's cheap enough, if you want to take that shot, he could be the guy who elevates you past a lot of teams and can make you really different in some of these tournaments.
I think that is where people are landing on, is he's not going to do anything early, but then he'll give you that Breece Hall level impact at the end. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's Breece Hall, and I don't think he's Breece Hall. We'll see how that plays out. It's managing those expectations, and I just believe that the expectation level for Chuba, this was not news to me because I didn't anticipate him playing. So good for Chuba Hubbard. opportunity for him early on. Chuba Hubbard in that offense, they're trying to revamp that. And we talked about Legette's injury, and I see some news on there now that hopefully not as bad as some people made it. But we're not done with the Carolina Panthers, Jay, because there's some buzz about another rookie that they spent some capital on, and ironically from the University of Texas, Ja'Tavion Sanders, tight end out of the University of Texas. He did not test particularly well at the combine, not his game, but with injuries to Ian Thomas, Tommy Tremble, he has been thrust into a position where he's had to step up and play. And from a lot of beat reporters that I know in Carolina and the things that you can read out there, he has done pretty well given his opportunity. Here's what Dave Canales said about Ja'Tavion Sanders. Canales said he's seen exponential growth from Sanders in technique in camp. That is good because Ian Thomas is dealing with a calf injury that could sideline him close to week 1. Sanders is going to have to step up. I've heard good things about JT Sanders, and more importantly, I'm hearing positive news about Bryce Young and his growth and development. So on a quick note, talk about JT Sanders and, this young tight end room where there's not a lot of proven talent in front of him. And we know what Canales did with Cade Otton last year. When he found a guy, it was like, that's my guy, and you're running as the guy. So do I believe that JT is in position to take this job from Tommy Tremble right now? No, but all your JT Sanders shares are not, in fact, dead.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point that, while Tommy Tremble or Ian Thomas probably has, quote unquote, pole position at that tight end one job, there's definitely a world where if he's good enough, especially in the receiving game, I think, especially for JT Sanders, it's probably more the blocking side, and maybe you can speak on that a little bit. But in the receiving side, I think there's a world where he could absolutely be the best receiving tight end on the team. And you brought up Cade Otton. Cade Otton, I believe, ran the most snaps in the NFL at tight end position last season, playing for Dave Canales and in that offense. And you talk about, a room with Mingo and Adam Thielen, and, we'll see what they get out of Xavier Legette. There is opportunity in this offense for a team that is down a lot and probably going to be down again this season and not be very good, at which point there's more passing opportunities. If Bryce Young likes to check it down to Ja'Tavion Sanders, that could be great for fantasy. So it's very interesting because when we're talking about Brooks, I was looking at their schedule, week 11 bye. So a late bye for Carolina this year. We talk about rookies kind of establishing themselves after a bye, but then they go in Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Philly, Dallas, Arizona, Tampa. Like Carolina's cooked, man. They're screwed.
Yeah, that's a
But
tough.
I do like Sanders' prospect overall in the offense because there's not enough established weapons that he can't potentially make an impact. And if he's getting opportunities now, he could take that and carry into the season as well.
Drew with the haterish comment of all hater comments. This is what we do. Drew said, I sold JT Sanders for a future 3rd and 4th. I hope he doesn't hit. The guy I traded him to will remind me every day.
Gotta respect it.
I could respect when you just put it out there like that. And I'll just say this. I am not championing him as a hit. Like, this is a guy that is definitely going to break out. But in an offense where there's ambiguity all over the place. I don't believe in Tommy Tremble or Ian Thomas to that degree. So when you've got a very open competition room, I'm willing to make some low-cost bets. If all it costs me is a future 4th or a 3rd to see if I can get, the tight end that's going to be on the field 90% of the time for Dave Canales, that's actually pretty good at running routes and catching the ball and doing stuff after the catch, sign me up. I'll take a shot on JT Sanders. Jay, let's stay inside the NFC South for a little bit and talk about what we're hearing out of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, there are a couple of rookies that are turning heads out of Tampa Bay Buccaneers camp. Let's start with the running back, Bucky Irving. I quote from one of the reporters in Tampa Bay, Bucky Irving continues to look like the real deal as a runner and receiver. He is going to have a bigger role than most people think this year as the locked and loaded RB2 on Tampa Bay. Talk about Bucky Irving, Jay. Talk about Bucky.
I mean, what does that mean, though? Okay,
I don't know what it
locked
means.
and loaded RB2.
What do you think it means?
Right? Rashad White is the one. He's not effective in the running game. Is Bucky Irving going to be more effective than Rashad White? Maybe. But in my opinion, Ray, and maybe you can speak to your insight on this as well, I don't think that Bucky Irving is taking Rashad White's receptions because that was his claim to fame from the very beginning. When he was in college, when he came to the NFL, and you saw it last season when everything went right, Rashad White smashed. I don't think Bucky Irving's taking that job, and otherwise they were abysmal in the running game. So with Canales gone, maybe they try to establish it more. Maybe Irving can get some carries, but I don't think the touchdowns are going to be there. I don't think the carries are going to be enough. It's really just if you already have him, maybe you hold. But we've heard this plenty of times out of Tampa Bay that this guy is rising. This guy's going to be a guy. This guy's going to make an impact. And it almost never happens at running back. Almost never.
Yeah, I like Bucky, man. I'm interested to see how they're going to operate in that offense. Somebody in the chat is talking about Sean Tucker, and reports are he's looked good and pushing hard for the RB3 role in that offense. I think that's the bigger, what does that mean? What Bucky Irving means, I do. Canales is not there, so we don't know how this offense is going to operate. When he was there, it was all Rachaad White. Like, if it's all that RB1. They drafted Bucky Irving for a reason. I think he does something a little different than Rachaad White. It's going to be interesting to see the deployment of those two running backs. I'm very curious to see because that could be a nice little backfield for us. Consolidated touches, just those two. But they've got a rookie receiver, Jalen McMillan, who's getting a lot of buzz as well. I know a lot of people are excited about McMillan. I'll just say temper those expectations a little bit as well because even though it's not the fun new name, reports are Trey Palmer's tearing it up as well. Like Trey Palmer's connection with Baker Mayfield on the downfield routes, the deep ball, him playing in 2 wide receiver sets. We already know that Trey Palmer played like 90% of 11 personnel snaps last year. He was already on the field over 90% of the time in their number 1 most deployed personnel grouping package. When they open up week 1, it's probably going to be Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Trey Palmer in at the slot in 11 personnel. But if Jalen McMillan can work his way in and get some rotational reps, maybe in 12, if they go 2 receiver sets, he's on the field alongside Mike Evans at sometimes. I don't think, again, are they going to pull Chris Godwin off the field for either one of those cats? Probably not. But just temper the McMillan expectations. But he's played well, and I'm excited to see what he can do. That Washington wide receiver room, I mean, Odunze, McMillan, and damn, who's the other guy? Jalen Polk, all performing pretty well through camp, Jay.
Yeah, I think the thing about McMillan that I really like is he's like a chess piece, right? He's a guy that could potentially fill in for a Mike Evans, could fill in for a Chris Godwin, and then potentially even fill in for a Trey Palmer. But as you mentioned, Trey Palmer was 4th in the team in targets last year and ran a ton of routes and played a ton of snaps. And he was a guy that we identified pretty early saying, hey, like, you know, we didn't expect this, but it's happening. Like, Trey Palmer's on the field, he's playing, and you look, he almost had as many targets as Rachaad White last season. So we talk about how many targets Rachaad White got, which is 70. Trey Palmer had 68. And no one wants Trey Palmer. No one talks about him. And while we do have a little bit of fears, or at least I do, about what this offense is without Canales, maybe they run a little bit less 11 personnel. It's more so that McMillan may have more of an uphill battle because Trey Palmer was better than expected. They still need the wide receiver depth because they don't know what's going to happen with Mike Evans because he's old. He could always get hurt. Same thing with Chris Godwin. We don't expect it, but it's good to have that depth. And then they also have Raheem Jarrett as well, who's still, I believe, is still on the roster. Again, we'll see if he's any good. McMillan's probably better, but he's got to work his way up the depth chart. We'll see, but no higher than wide receiver 4, and that hasn't been relevant because Devin Tompkins last season, 25 targets, was the 4th receiver that was on the depth chart.
Pass on that wide receiver 4, but I'll tell you a receiver you ain't passing on, Jay. The hype is out of control. The hype, and this, it's hard for me to say this because this is my guy, guy, Jay, but the hype is out of control. And I asked you before the show, I said, Jay, are there any new Nabers clips that we could pull today? Has he done anything? And you're like, has he done anything? Malik Nabers, Jay. Jay, let's just run it back one more time and just look at the double move. Look how big he is, Jay. I'm all in, Jay. I am absolutely, unequivocally all the F in on Malik Nabers right now. I'm over the moon, excited. I told you, didn't I tell you we exchanged the contact information? I texted him after that play. It's like, good shit, man. Keep doing your thing. When you're back in Dallas, hit me up. But, Jay, I'm seeing people saying trade Marvin Harrison Jr. for Malik Nabers straight up in Dynasty. Malik. Now, if I recall, there was a battle between you and old Derek Brown on here about Marvin Harrison and Malik Nabers. I don't know what side you stood on, but today I'm just going to ask you this question. what asset would you rather roster right now? You have this asset on your team in Dynasty, your most prized Dynasty roster. And let's just say you're not thinking about they're going to turn into Puka, Nacua, or Justin Jefferson. You're thinking about just value and what you can do with that asset. Would you rather have Malik Nabers today or Marvin Harrison Jr. today?
I will take Marvin Harrison Jr. fairly easily.
All right, talk about
I'll take the son of the Hall of Famer over Malik Nabers for now. I think the problem with Nabers is ultimately going to be the quarterback, right? And to be fair, I am a big Kyler Murray guy. I won't be apologetic about that. I'll be open, honest about it. And on top of that, I think that the Cardinals could have a very good season. Not to say they're going to have a 10-win season or a 12-win season, but we looked at what happened last year, and, you know, it was the early reports with the coach, and is he going to be the coach long-term, and is he ready, scared of the moment? But, man, the Arizona Cardinals were really good last year. For what we expected of them, they were really good. They played well on defense. They were okay on offense. They got Marvin Harrison Jr., and now they can take another step forward. But the biggest thing is they have Kyler Murray. Malik Nabers does not have Kyler Murray, and that's the ultimate reason why you want Marvin Harrison Jr. over Malik Nabers. Malik Nabers is going to get more hype. He's going to be more talked about. The NFL can actually sell his jerseys, Ray, so that's a big aspect as well. But Marv is still the guy you want. He is the son of the Hall of Famer.
What does the salesmanship of those jerseys have to do with your roster?
Because, Ray, as much as I like Marvin Harrison Jr. right now, I got to go on DHgate to go buy his jersey. I got to go on Temu to go and buy his jersey because the NFL ain't selling his jersey. Yeah, AliExpress to buy his jersey. Right? I don't want that. I want the authentic. I want the real shit. But Malik Nabers, flying off the shelves.
I have bought probably 3 things from freaking Instagram ad placement. Goddamn laptop mat.
They get you, eh?
They get you. To charge those wireless headphones that I don't have. I need to rest that MacBook on that DHgate laptop mat for 120 fucking bucks. But neither here nor there, Jay. I see a lot of people talking about they would trade their Marvin Harrison Jr. for Malik Nabers right now. Those are things that I'm seeing from the streets, Jay. I'm asking you.
Okay, Swim is saying there's not a big difference between DJ and Kyler in the pocket. Well, the sack numbers would argue otherwise, my friend, because DJ is getting sacked left and right. He's getting sacked so much he's getting hurt, and Kyler doesn't take a lot of sacks. And still, even with that, I still believe there's a world that the offense is even better. So that's the other problem, is that it's not just the fact that, you know, Daniel Jones versus Kyler is a discussion, because it's not, for one. But it's also the fact that I think the Arizona offense is going to be much better. They have a better running game. They have better pass catchers overall. Say what you want about the one, but even outside of that, you got Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, who I don't know if you have the clip of Michael Wilson. He's looking good too. So, like, there's lots of things to like about the Cardinals. I do think,
speaking of Mike, look at this catch, Mike Wilson. I had it, man. You stole my thunder. Look at Mike Wilson. Look at this throw. Kyler Daniel Jones right in the bucket to Michael Wilson, Jay. Look at this. This is who I think is going to be the 2. It's not. I know the Dortch hype and all that other stuff, but it's going to be Marv and Mike. It's going to be Eminem on the outside. Marv, Mike, McBride, Murray. M4. That's what we just need to call the Cardinals this year. M4, Jay. M4. Oh, where's Jay Rich at? My bad, Jay. That's what we need to call him. M4. Marv, McBride, Murray, Mike Wilson, M4. You're on mute. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah, I mute mute. You always mute me when the clips go up, but yeah, I that's where it's like, you know, Michael Wilson year 2, Trey McBride. Like, there's a lot of things to like with this offense. And granted, I am a little bit sour on the offense, and I will definitely eat some crow if Malik Nabers is very good. But I still think that we have to temper some expectations just on the Giants as a whole. Malik Nabers may be able to get his, but I still think it will be very difficult when the rest of the offense is what it is. And we'll see. Hopefully he can overcome it. It's going to be, Ray, in theory, this should be his most difficult season that he may ever have at wide receiver.
You're talking about
from Nabers, Nabers.
Your Nabers?
Yeah, it should be his most difficult year because they have to address the offensive line still.
The O-line is a problem, and I've heard it looks bad in camp. Yeah. I've heard the O-line does not
and the quarterback situation can be drastically improved with a draft class or whatever. Like, there's lots of ways they can get better on offense, and in theory, it should be Malik Nabers' worst situation. So you could buy mid-season, you could buy it now if you want, but I think there's better things to come from Malik, just not this year.
I'll just say this, man, and I'm not going to say any names. I'm not going to call anybody out. But there is something to adding. If Malik Nabers is the type of receiver that we believe he can be, and all this practice shit looks good now, but until you do it on the field on Sundays and on Mondays, Jay, it's all just like, do you remember any camp clips from last year? Very few. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, once you get on the field, that's the stuff that matters. And I do remember there were a lot of big named smart analysts who talked about how awful Josh Allen was going into 2020, that the Bills are not going to pick up his fifth-year option, that he is not a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, that there's no way that his completion percentage numbers are going to improve. And the Buffalo Bills, they traded for Toe Tap Tony for about 15 minutes. They brought Antonio Brown in. AB said, I'm not going to Buffalo. They went and made a trade for Stephon Diggs. And the rest was history. That season, that COVID season, when they got Diggs, it transformed life for not just Diggs, but for Josh Allen. And I am not saying that Daniel Jones is the second coming of Josh Allen, nor am I saying that Malik Nabers is Stephon Diggs. All I'm saying is I would like to see what Daboll could do with Daniel Jones, with the receiver that we believe is of the caliber of a Stephon Diggs. Is that going to change life in New York overnight? I don't think so. Is that going to give Daniel Jones this long-term security of the future like Josh Allen? I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is he is throwing to Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton is a lot different than having somebody that NFL defensive coordinators will lose sleep over in Malik Nabers. So I think that's just, I just want to see how that works out with Daboll, with Jones. And you said it can't get any worse. Jay, I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the league.
Okay.
There's a chance that they got this same quarterback. They run this shit right back next year with Jones and a rookie quarterback potentially. So it feels like we are destined, Jay Rich, for Drake London, DJ Moore type situation. That's just in Terry McLaurin. It kind of feels like
you're hoping for Garrett Wilson. I think
you're
hoping for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Right? Because Garrett Wilson was,
that's what it feels like.
Targets and 1,100 yards or something like
that. That's what it feels like. But maybe we will be proven wrong, and he is just, it's not 140 targets. It's 180 out the rip. And if he gets 150 plus targets this year, there's no fear. It won't matter. It will not matter if he's going to be. I just question, can Jones even get it to him 150 times behind that line? Behind that line and his own issues, it's just highly questionable, Jay. Highly questionable for me.
Now,
but
Ray,
I
can
love
I ask you a question before we transition?
Yeah.
If Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers have the same stats, identical across the board in 2024, who has more value?
If Marv and Malik have the same stats this season, who has more value? I still think people will lean Marv because of Kyler. I still think people will. I think Kyler is what's really. I think that is really what's helping Marv out a lot is Kyler Murray, what they've done around that offense, and we haven't seen, like, we've just seen Daniel Jones be bad for so many years that I think no matter what really happens, like what needs to take place is they just throw it to Malik every single time. Just throw it to him, just hyper target him. Elwood is saying Nabers. I still think it would be Marv.
So part of me does think that, if they do the same thing, Nabers will do it in more dramatic fashion and in a more exciting fashion and will actually have more value because of it. Because he's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit faster. Again, the numbers will be the same, but I think that the way they go about their business and the way they get it done will be drastically different. And so part of me does believe if Nabers can match what Marv does somehow, it would give him that leg up in terms of value.
Can I ask you about Keon Coleman just really quickly? He wasn't on the show, Doc, but where are you at with Keon Coleman? I'm looking Underdog Fantasy 22 minutes ago. He has risen. Wow. From the pre-NFL draft to now, 61 spots, Jay. From 137.5 to 76.6 overall ADP for Keon Coleman, who everything that I'm seeing, he's doing. I mean, yeah, he's got his growing pains. He's not He's not a full route tree complementary receiver today. It's not. It's not going to be that. That's not the expectation for Coleman. But the things that Buffalo has seemed to ask him to do through training camp, pretty damn good to me, Jay. I'm liking what I'm hearing out of Buffalo and thinking about him being deployed in one of some of the reports that they put him in the slot, Jay. That he's running inside. Yeah, man. In the slot.
I mean, like,
I like it.
The reason why I'm in personally, Josh Allen in his last 4 seasons, 37 touchdowns, 36 touchdowns, 35 touchdowns, 29 touchdowns. If there was a player that was going to go off in terms of strictly touchdowns, especially on this roster with Khalil Shakur and Curtis Samuel, James Cook is going to catch a few touchdowns. But if you were to pick a guy to really explode in terms of touchdowns, it'd be one of the tight ends, or at receiver, it would be Keon Coleman. And so when you talk about Josh Allen and the quote-unquote lack of playmakers he has because they're very young and we don't know how they're all going to operate, we expect a lot out of Kincaid. We expect Curtis Samuel to be very good as probably one of the top targets, if not the top target. And then Keon Coleman is a guy that potentially could do something outside. You look at what he's expected to do, around 700 yards for his over-under 4.5 touchdowns. If he had 700 yards and 6 touchdowns, I think that's a pretty good season for a dude who can't separate, is a little bit overrated, but he's playing with Josh Allen. And this is the same conversation we talked about with Marvin Harrison and Malik Nabers. When you have the quarterback, your ceiling is exponentially higher. Xavier Worthy is ridiculously talented. The ceiling is exponentially higher because he plays for a quarterback that can get him the ball and has an extremely high ceiling as well. Same thing with C.J. Stroud and the Texans. So just keep that in mind when you're fading Coleman, because you don't like him, you don't think he's any good, because any receiver that has a quarterback that is at that level, at that caliber, can have a big year, especially one that can be great in the red zone, and the Bills desperately need that weapon.
Let me ask you, since you're on that, Keon Coleman, or we're going to play a little Would You Rather Keon Coleman edition, okay? Is that cool?
Yeah.
Hit the music. Hit the music. All right, Jay, Keon Coleman or Jameson Williams right now, this season?
Keon Coleman.
This season. Okay. Keon Coleman or DeAndre Hopkins. He's back week 2, week 3. Coleman or Nuke?
I think you want Nuke. I
want Coleman. Coleman or Josh Palmer?
I'm taking Coleman. His quarterback is actually.
Let's move our way up. Coleman or Christian Watson?
I'll take Christian Watson. That's really tough, though.
Coleman or JSN?
Coleman.
Coleman or Christian Kirk?
Christian Kirk.
Coleman or Deontay?
Deontay.
Coleman or Odunze? Last one. Rookies.
Coleman.
Coleman or who?
Coleman.
Coleman easily. Over Odunze? Seasonal? Okay.
Yeah. For seasonal, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Kill it.
Yeah.
You talked about X Worthy, and you cannot call it a boogeyman, and not he will appear, man. Xavier Worthy, a new week, another one of these, Jay Rich. A new week, and here we go. This is a new play, similar result. Just running down the field. Look, we're not even going to try it, though. Xavier Worthy, Jay Rich. Look at that. X Worthy down the field again for Patrick Mahomes, and clearly the defense is going half speed, but it's just fun to see these two connecting and trying to get Patrick Mahomes to air the ball out deep. There were a lot of people that were talking about the clip. Did you see the clip where Worthy got jammed at the line of scrimmage? Got jammed and then thrown
around like a rag
into the line. It was a pinball machine, man. Hands on him, slapped his little ass into the linebackers, and people are like, that's why you got to fade Xavier Worthy. And then me and Eric Crocker, shout out to my dog Crocker, man. Crocker Report does great work for the Niners, played in the league, played high-level football as a defensive back. And we're just laughing like, you guys really think that NFL teams are out here running press man 100% of the time? They're barely even running man coverage, that in its own right.
20%.
And then they're not they're trying to get hands on, but there's no press man. They don't line up in press coverage 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40% of the time. It doesn't happen. And the creativity of offensive coordinators to move their receivers around, line them up in bunch, Have him off the line. Put him in the slot where you can't touch him because there's automatically 5 yards of separation at the start. These offensive coordinators are smart enough to understand that we can't just stand him out there in the line and let him get touched up. Like, I don't know if that made you concerned about Worthy at all, because I just saw the number one player voted on by the players, the NFL Top 100, Tyreek Hill, getting jammed to oblivion by L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, legitimately hands on Tyreek Hill in the dirt. So shit happens. It's football. The defensive players, you know, they get paid a lot of money too. Like the guys on the defensive side of the ball, they get paid a lot of money, and they're very good at what they do now. So watching Xavier Worthy get pressed up, that is football, my friends. That is football, Jay.
Yeah, Ray, I think it's very interesting because I don't know if you saw this as well, right? So Tyreek Hill, obviously number one player in football. Honestly, super dope to see him get voted because he probably deserves it. That was really interesting to see the players vote him as number one. But did you also see that the NFL is looking at that jet motion, and there's going to be a lot more flags on that play this season if teams aren't doing it properly, because there's a lot of examples of players where they are running laterally, but then, you know, they take that small little turn up the field, right? And apparently that's going to be a new flag. So, but to your point, that's the things that
they're
the
going to
NFL
watch
has
that.
developed.
Tyreek is a master at that. He'll go in that orbit motion and just get to go towards the line of scrimmage. Yeah.
So that apparently will be a big focus. So watch out for that. But that's the type of stuff that you can do, right? And those are the things that, especially through an off season, that was new, you know, last year, and it was picked up by Sean McVay, go figure, picked up by Kyle Shanahan, go figure. Mike McDaniel kind of started that, and now it's much more widespread. But it's very interesting how the NFL even picked up and said, hey guys, you know, we understand that you're kind of bending the rule a bit, but you got to make sure you stay loud. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts things. But no, I'm not concerned about Worthy. He's going to be great. He is great. But Ray, I do have to ask you about one player, because it's been 2 or 3 shows, and magically somehow he's never been on the show sheet. Magically somehow he never made it into the show doc, even though all I hear is glowing reports. Best rookie quarterback, period, is all I see and all I hear about one JJ McCarthy out of Minnesota. Period? Hey, I've seen touchdown interception ratios of 24 to 1.
Oh, man.
Looks like Patrick Mahomes in practice.
Oh, man.
I don't know if you got JJ McCarthy muted on your Twitter timeline, but you never talk about JJ McCarthy. So Ray, I have to ask you, because there is a lot of, and granted, it's mostly fan steam and fan smoke, but is there a world where you think JJ McCarthy can ultimately win this job in Minnesota? Because there is a lot of reports that he's looked very good. And for a guy who was shit on a lot because he didn't throw enough by a lot of people and he didn't have enough on tape, and is he really going to translate? And especially for me, who knows he can run a pro-style offense coming out of Michigan, there is a world where he's pretty good in play action because we know he can run it, we know he can do it. And if he's accurate throwing the ball, Jordan Addison will benefit. TJ Hawkinson, when he's back, will benefit. And ultimately, Justin Jefferson would have a higher ceiling. We want JJ McCarthy to be good and be the quarterback for the Vikings because we already know what Sam Darnold is. But is there a world, Ray, where JJ McCarthy can win the job week 1? And how are you feeling about him right now? Because we haven't talked about him in weeks.
I mean, I believe so, but not on this timeline, not on the sacred timeline. I do not believe he's going to win the starting job here on Earth 616. No, I do not believe. Marvel, for those of y'all who know, you know. But no, I do not believe he's going to win the job out of camp. I don't think that they're going to do that. I believe they've got Sam Darnold there for a reason. And I would like to err on the side of Kevin O'Connell, and the Vikings are going to do right by JJ McCarthy. I'm going to err on the side of they're going to take their time with their young franchise quarterback. They're not going to throw him out to the Wolves. I know that first game versus the Giants looks tantalizing, Jay, but after that, it's 3 to 5 nasty ones in a row that you just don't want to do that. So I believe that they are going to make Sam Darnold the sacrificial lamb, and they're going to offer him up as the sacrifice to NFL defenses. And once they have devoured that offense, they will have to turn to JJ McCarthy as the savior of that team. And I believe after those first 5 or 6 weeks, things lighten up a little bit for Minnesota, just a little bit. They're not as rocky as they were when they start. But no, I do not believe that he's going to win this job outright. I believe it will be Sam Darnold, and I'm happy for that. If you are a fan of JJ McCarthy, let Darnold go out there and stink it up the first 5 to 6 weeks. after that week 5 bye, I believe they've got one of the earliest buys. You start to ramp up for JJ McCarthy. And at that point in time, what do I believe he is for fantasy? Probably not a ton this year, but what I'm hoping to see is just the command of the offense, confidence. He will make some big plays. I think his legs are very much underrated rushing ability, but I don't think we're really going to see the fantasy potential or impact from McCarthy until 2025, and I'm fine with that, Jay. Like, I'm fine with that. If Jordan Love has taught us nothing, if you've got some patience and some discipline, you'll be okay. So, no, I don't think he's going to win this job out of camp. And from what I've heard, he's had some decent throws, but still a long way to go. So I think that is Elon's algorithm tricking us and putting all those damn JJ McCarthy. There was one I saw the other day, the best throw of all training camps, and it was like a hitch route. It was just a normal pass from McCarthy to the receiver, and they were like, this is the best throw of training camp. So I think there's a little bit of trolling going on, but nah, man, next year.
Yeah, I think for me, it's good because I wasn't expecting much, but there's reports he's playing against first team defense, which again is another step. And then I think, talking about hearing this development and him potentially being more ready than we expected, I'm excited to see him in preseason as well. Like, if he looks good in preseason, that's an encouraging sign. But to your point, it's not going to get him the starting job, but at least see, can he stack some throws, make some plays? Because we all know that we do not want to get fooled by training camp like we have been by some of these quarterbacks. Because some quarterbacks look real good in training camp, and then when the real lights turn on, not so good.
Couple of other quick news notes. The Rams tight end battle, all three of them are playing, apparently. All three of them. Parkinson, Davis Allen, and Hunter Long. All three very active with the ones, rotating in 11 personnel. You just don't want Rams tight ends, period. I just don't think you want Rams tight ends. The Indianapolis Colts, It looks like Adonai Mitchell is playing well, but I'm not expecting a ton from A.D. Mitchell. Jay Rich, not this year, but apparently he's played pretty well coming through camp. And then there was a nugget from the Raiders that I was remiss. I didn't say it, but I wanted to read this about the Raiders, Jay. On the tight end battle with Brock Bowers. Let's talk. I just want to read this real quick. It's a direct quote. With the team usually lined up in heavy sets and they all seem to be making catches, the Raiders will have first-round pick Brock Bowers and second-year man Michael Mayer on the field together this season a lot. And they both have stood out with their catching and blocking ability. Getsy said they know the new offense so well already that they often tell receivers where to line up. This is something that I've kind of talked about, that Mayer isn't dead. I believe they're going to, this really feels like what New England was able to do when they had two tight ends that had two totally different skill sets in Hernandez and Gronkowski. I'm not saying either of those guys are those players. Gronk is a future Hall of Famer, first ballot, no doubt about it, and we know everything that happened with Hernandez. But when you look at Mayer's skill set and Bowers, although they have a tight end label next to their last name, Jay, they're not the same type of player. They win very different ways. I think this is going to be good for whomever's the quarterback, and it's going to be just a condensed offense. You got those two tight ends, and then you've got Adams and Myers, Jacoby Myers. Yeah, Myers and Adams. So just wanted to read that about those two tight ends from the Raiders, Jay. Anything else you want to say about anything burning, training camp stuff? Is QJ done? Is it over for Quinn Johnston, Jay? Is it over?
I guess not yet. Not yet. But it ain't looking good.
It ain't looking good.
That's for sure.
I mean, he's
it
still
ain't looking good at all.
Can I just ask you one question?
Unless you're Quentin Johnston.
Can I ask you one question? Like, honestly, this is helmets. Will you ever be in on a TCU player again? Kendre hurt TCU. Kendre's failed us. QJ, Josh Doxson, Jay, the only one that has done anything for us. Can you name the only TCU player over the last 25 years that has given us anything for fantasy?
LT. Didn't he go to TCU?
That's about it. And
Look
I did zero research. I have no clue. I have no clue. There might be another one, but LT is about the last one. They got a couple of cats this year.
Wiley? Hope for Jared Wiley? He went to TCU.
None of them, Jay. I think we're a full fade TCU from this point forward. So Savion Williams, Eric McAllister, I like y'all for my underdog BBM1 teams, but we ain't touching no TCU.
Didn't they get an Alabama transfer too? I forget.
Oh yeah, they got Scott Connor's favorite, Trey Sanders, old Trey Sanders out of Alabama.
It. Yeah, Trey Sanders.
Andy Dalton and LaDainian Tomlinson. There you go.
There you go, Andy Dalton. True.
Yeah, you got the red rifle out there. All right, Jay, that is the show. Appreciate everybody tapping into this wake up stream Monday, August 5th. Went through some training camp news, reports, highlights. Make sure you go back and check out the show last night. Scott Connor and I, FFPC Draft. We really just talked training camp and drafted. His show with John Bauer, part 2 of the Dynasty Theory crew with John Bauer and Mitch Sorensen, out now on DD Podcast feed. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe. Jay, I'm surprised people think that's like some slow music or intermission beat. That's the Kendrick Lamar Euphoria beat, man. People ain't
Euphoria. Someone got it
it's
last
the first
time,
half
though.
of Euphoria. People got to get with it, man. People don't know what's going down. But yeah, Stanley said I might be out on TCU. Hit the outro music, Jay. We're gonna get out of here. You want to wrap us up, Jay?
Sure. I'll wrap us up. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Get excited for preseason this week because it is preseason week 1, and you know that Ray and I will be back to talk all things preseason, walk through all the games, who we like, who we don't like, who showed out, who
Bleacher
didn't,
Report this week too, Jay.
What it means for fantasy. Yes, Bleacher Report on tomorrow. We don't know what we're talking about yet, but we will get that out. And you can actually follow us on Bleacher Report. So if you go on the Bleacher Report, make sure you're following Ray GQ. So make sure that you do that, but we will be on live tomorrow, I believe at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Make sure you like and subscribe. But until next time, for Ray and for me, we are out. Peace.